Oh, then.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I hit record. So whenever you're ready, take one.
Hi, this is Deanna with PhDFeminineHealth.com. And I'm here today on the Jeff Smith Show, Vroom, Vroom, Veer.
That's pretty good. You hit it. You hit everything.
Do you want me to do it again?
If you want to do it again, you can do it again.
Yeah,
sure.
Let me do it one more time.
Okay, go for it.
Hi, this is Deanna Seymour, founder of PhD Feminine Health. And I am here today with Jeff Smith on Vroom, Vroom, Veer.
Well done. I like take two better. I might leave them both there. Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Lyle Haugen, I hope I said your name right. Welcome to the show, and thanks for being on Vroom Vroom Veer. How's it going?
Excellent. And it was Jeff Smythe? No, I'm joking. Smith.
Smythe, yes. Yeah, it's one of those names that if you're screwing it up, I know you're messing with me, which I love.
How do you get exotic with that? It's Smith.
Yeah, you really can't. Smythe is about as far as.
Well, I would rather have your name than mine because nobody gets it right. So don't fret.
Right. No, it's actually fun being having a very common name. It's comedy forever. You know.
Well, you could blend in. Nobody knew you were there, right?
That's right. I like to say I'm hiding in plain sight, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's just digital camouflage, right? You're
correct.
Just like everybody.
Right. And you've always got that. Well, that wasn't me. That was some other dude named Jeff.
Oh, that's another Smith. They're everywhere. They grow on trees around here.
That could not possibly be me, right? Yes, right. And there's always like 3 Jeff Smiths everywhere you work. It's amazing. It's endlessly fun.
Well, for guys like me that have a hard time with names, it makes it easy because there's just one Jeff Smith. And, they just all come at the same time, right?
And you were always the example in every book. It was usually either Jim Smith or John Smith. I think it was always John Smith, right? Was the Smith, sample name of in all textbooks.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so before we chatter on until we all bleed our ears out, you are at type1simplified.com. And talk a little bit about what you've got going on in your business that you're most excited about today.
Excellent. Well, at type1simplified.com, what I am doing right now, I've got, if everybody would like to take a quick run over to the website, there's a free report there that I think everybody could kind of relate to. And with type 1 diabetes, sleeping at night can sometimes be a major problem.
Right.
So this is a report I made up, Type 1 Simplified, the all-night sleep solution. The best part in here is a whole bunch of words. I hope they help. I really meant them to help. I want them to help. But there's a recipe in here that you'll die for, Jeff.
Oh, really? Okay. Now I have to check that out.
It's an energy bar that has about 5 different nuts and 5 different seeds, dried fruits, a chocolate topping on it. Got coconut in there. It's the bomb.
And it tastes good too. It sounds good.
That's the wild part. That's the wild part is I have
not just
people,
good for you.
I have people take a bite and all the other diabetics out there will understand this because people look at you when you take a bite of something that they obviously think you shouldn't eat.
Right. It's obviously made of sugar.
Yeah. So they'll take a bite and they'll just give you that snap look and they'll go, "You're supposed to eat this?"
Right? And you want to go to sleep after you eat that?
Well, right. And this is what I try to do. Sorry, I'm wobbling around here.
That's all good. No, it's perfect.
Mess with the mic there. Being in touch with your food, with real food, with whole food is so important to being able to manage. I don't care whether you're diabetic, chimpanzee, whatever. If you don't get the right stuff in you,
it's true.
You're not going to have the right stuff coming out of you.
It's true. Yeah. You know, and when the first thing I thought of when I started reading your one sheet and your website and everything else, I know it's specifically for people with type 1 diabetes, but it applies to everybody. I don't have type 1 diabetes, and I'm like, yep, I've gone through all of this stuff. I mean, to a lesser degree, right?
Can we do our first Veer?
Of course.
In my travels, in the last 5 years of making this changeover, because it's been a bit of a time. I'm 56. I don't move as quick as I used to, right?
Sure.
So in this changeover, I'd moved to a different town. Took a year and a half to get a new doctor. I live in Canada. Don't think that our healthcare system is perfect. Sometimes we get it paid for, but if you can't find one, what does it matter, right?
Right. Right. So you still have to find a good doctor, right?
And this is partly why I ended up really taking control of my own health and my own body. But I would basically, he was my gatekeeper to getting access to my insulin.
Okay. Gotcha.
Understand? Like you got to go through the doctor to get the prescription so you can get it, right?
He's your drug dealer.
Pretty much. Yeah. You nailed her. So, I'm hanging down on the corner with my doctor there, and he's looking at my numbers and he's looking at my stats, and he's just like, huh. And I went, what? Well, I asked you to give me a list of all the drugs you're on. All you got down here is insulin. And I go, yeah, well, technically that's a hormone. It's not really a drug, but yeah. Well, you don't take anything else? And I go, no. So he does the blood pressure, 115 over 65.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. That's kind of like, a runner's kind of blood pressure. Right. Trust me, I'm not. I'm an efficiency expert. I'd rather sit than stand and lay than sit. Okay.
Yes, I only run if something's chasing me.
Yeah. If I'm running, you might want to join in, right?
Right.
So he just keeps looking through the numbers, and I don't want to be technical or anything, but there's a number that we're supposed to be within when they take a blood test. It's called the hemoglobin A1C. It's a percentage, an average over 60 to 90 days of what your blood sugar is.
Sure.
So he looks at that, and it's 5.7. Well, normal is 4.5 to 5.7.
Okay. So you're good.
So I'm good, right? But he also sees that I'm, quite healthy. I'm not like a Mark Sisson or any of those other guys that are, got the real ripped 6-pack. I'm more of a 4-pack with a headrest kind of guy, right? So
that's funny. That's good. Yeah, I'm keeping that one.
That image will probably last for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
So finally, a couple of things go on, and he just can't quite figure it out. I just keep dropping a couple of little things. I said, well, I do it with my diet. And finally, he got curious. Well, what do you do? So I fed him some of these bars, and he was just all over them like a, large fella on a Smartie, if you know what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
He just finally one day he said, have you got any scientific proof, or they always want to see studies, right?
Sure, of course.
It's all about the studies, Jeff. Study this, study that, study. So I did. I brought him in a couple of things. I've got a shake on my website that I have every day, that he has every day, and his whole family has every day now. I digress. But let's get back to the fact that this shake, he said, in there is hemp hearts, hulled hemp seeds, right?
Okay.
Very high in omega-3, very high in a lot of good fatty acids, high in iron. A lot of the ladies that I put on this stuff, their monthly stuff just softens right up and gets easier and better for them. It's just amazing, right? So I bring them the studies, and it shows how you can actually lower your blood pressure acutely or chronically by eating hemp hearts.
All right.
So finally, just in I'm visiting him, trying to get some, new updates on my insulin, and he just kind of says, out of the blue, he says, all right, let's do this. And I'm like, yeah. Hey, I'm looking for the prescription. He hasn't even put anything into the computer yet. And I said, what are we doing? He goes, coach me.
What? Wow.
I said, good, let's get started. So,
wow.
Younger than me, but, was having, being a doctor's hard job, eh?
Yeah.
You got retarded hours. You absolutely retarded hours, and
kind of
people
probably
never get
diet.
sick when you don't want to be there, right?
Right.
And everybody you're talking to is just not healthy. Like, it just doesn't seem like a very positive thing to do sometimes, right?
Right.
So I didn't realize it, but in the process of me putting him through my course, we got rid of his addiction to sugars.
Right.
We got rid of his eczema that he's had for 15 years, ever since med school.
Wow.
And then I showed him what made it come back. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I said, so, Doc, you wanted to see some studies. How's that one?
Yeah, the one that you just lived through.
Study of one is always the best one, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I've actually gone through it myself, so we can swap stories for sure.
Wicked.
Yeah.
All right. So that was a bit of a veer. So
yeah, big time.
Get me back on track. Where would you like to go from here?
Well, so we know now, like you are now like a health coach, right?
Correct. I'm a registered nutritional health coach or a registered nutritional coach, both of them.
Gotcha. But you didn't, back in 1985, you had a completely different job and a completely different life. So the kind of the nature of this show is to get the highlights, the sort of like the highlight reel of your life, and focusing in on what we just talked about, those big Veer moments. So let's go back to 1985 and talk about what started this whole mess and what put you on this path to begin with.
Well, let me paint just a little grander picture here, kind of down the valley. So let's go back a little bit down the valley I started working at the age of 18 as an oil field operator in the oil patch in northern British Columbia. What's the latitude there? 56 and a bit.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So that's where I spent most of my life growing up and getting my first job. And while I was doing that, I kind of got, that itch. I wanted to go somewhere else. I wanted to do other things. So I started looking into diving, deep sea diving. So for a 3-year period of time, managed everything, got all the appropriate courses. I had to pick up my grade 12 because I quit in grade 11 to go trapping for an entire year. That's a whole nother story.
Okay. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, well, it was interesting.
Sure.
So I get everything organized. I end up in Los Angeles in 1984, January 2nd.
Okay.
So I am a qualified commercial deep sea diver to 1,000 feet on mixed gases and also a diver medic qualified to suture and stitch and do tracheotomies.
Wow. Okay. So that's a very dangerous job, just so people know.
just a teeny bit.
Yeah.
A smidge, as they say.
A smidge. That is a very dangerous job. People die doing that job quite often, and they
hence the reason for me taking the diver medic portion.
Right. Good for you.
So
okay.
my medical background has got a bit of depth and history to it. Right.
A lot of depth. I like that.
Before I ever started doing this, so now I get finished with diving. I get back to Canada. One of the Canadian companies, Canada, was looking at hiring me in June, but they weren't firing up until June because even though, in the U.S. you've had summer for 4 months, the ice just melts then in the Arctic, right?
Right. Okay.
So that was the plan, and working in the oil and gas industry. So I bought, that knowledge in with my current training that I had for diving. I figured that would be, you're drilling for oil. Why wouldn't that go together, right?
Sounds like a good plan. I like this. Yeah, plan.
and then go travel the world.
Perfect.
Like why not? So that was my plan. And a young lady. Here's a bit of a veer. A young lady before I left to go to school. We ended up falling in love, and it was kind of like, well, I just can't drag you around the world. It wouldn't be good for you, And she decided, yeah, you can. So.
Yeah, you can. That's the right girl, then maybe.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought too. She showed up in Los Angeles, and we got married. Actually, it was February 18th, 35 years ago, right? But unfortunately, we'll get back to that story in a minute. So I have to get a job because I got to support her. We got all this stuff going on, right? I end up back in the oil patch, but way up, close to the Arctic Circle, right?
Wow. Okay.
And this one morning I wake up, it's 37, 38 below. My task that day was actually to drive a rubber-tired backhoe out about 35 miles. 20 miles of that was on Humpy Bumpy Muskeg. If you ever seen Ice Road Truckers, that's the smooth part. If you ever take a little divergence off those, what we call freeways up here.
Right. Okay. Wow.
You call it an ice road, we call it a freeway.
Right.
You get on the side roads, they're quite bumpy because you're not allowed to nip off the tops of the
frozen waves.
Well, it's vegetation, right?
Oh wow. Okay.
And if you cut into it, well, then it becomes damaged, and then next thing you know, you got a huge hole there. Like a lot of this mustang, sometimes there could be 60 feet of water underneath these floating pads of peat moss, basically.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Anyways,
okay.
I got to get out there. 20 miles I'm driving out there, bouncing around. Takes, I don't know, 3.5 hours to bounce out there. Get out to this, what's called a dehydrator. Right? I'm at a single well site. There's a gas well producing natural gas. It comes into a building that's called a dehydrator. Okay. Its sole purpose is to extract the moisture from the natural gas so that when it goes into the pipeline, it doesn't hydrate.
Okay. Makes sense.
This unit was, yeah, exactly. This unit was having some trouble, and the glycol was being dragged down the pipeline, and it was misstepping and misfiring this is my day number 3 that I've been at this new job, right? So the reason I'm there with the backhoe is I got to move the steps out, because to get into the building, you get up the steps, and then you still got 3.5 feet to jump into the building. So you got, yeah, steps are kind of pointless, right?
Yeah, all right. Okay.
So the first thing is I see it all steaming and going crazy and making its stupid sounds like it was running away, and I want to go up and handle this before I, do the outdoor task, right?
Okay.
So I get to the top of the stairs, I have to take one mitt off. Remember, it's 37 below out, and I'm bundled up to where I can barely move, right?
Right.
Because the backhoe isn't warm either. I'm telling you, it's not like Bermuda in there at all.
Okay. So you don't want any exposed skin at all. If you can.
No, you really don't. It freezes within a minute and a half, right? Okay. And I mean, so I reach up as high as I can reach to get the door handle, and it's one of them that's got the panic bar on the inside, the metal door, what I mean?
Yep.
So I reach in on that bare hand on that panic bar, and then the other hand in onto the doorway sill, right? And shinny myself up, like just kind of pull and stand up just into the doorway. And just as I stand up, I see what's going on inside, and here the reboiler section is glowing red.
Oh my God.
Like red.
Yikes.
And then I catch this little sort of a fissure of something coming out of this red. Like a bright, like an arc of light.
Yikes.
No, I said crap.
First you said it, then you did it?
Pretty close.
So, okay.
Now you got to understand, I'm all bundled up, right? I'm not a big man. I'm, 5'10", 5'11", somewhere in there, depending on whether I've slept or not, right?
Okay.
So, but I got all these clothes on. So right. I go to spin around because I knew what was coming, and it wasn't going to be pretty, right?
Right.
And I spin around in the door jamb. Well,
it's kind of icy, maybe.
If you're a gun maker or a cannon maker, that's exactly what you want. A whole bunch of fluffy batten wrapped around the cannonball
right
before you ignite the cannon.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
So you are Mr. Cannonball.
I am Mr. Cannonball. Now you got to understand the floor of this thing where I'm standing is about 9 feet off the ground, right?
Right. Wow.
I hit the ground 45 feet later, Jeff.
Wow.
Halfway to the wellhead. But in the process, like I can go through it, whenever you have an event like this in your life, and I know many people have had
slow-mo.
Well, you get frame by frame.
You got frame by frame. Whoa.
Nice. You just get frame by frame. So, I mean, when that thing punched and lit up, it kicked all the wind right out of me.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I'm sailing through the air, and I'm just like trying to see where I'm going to land, kind of, sort of, like where am I headed?
You're hoping for Fluffy.
Yeah. But I'm going like, I got to breathe, but all these little fingers of flame are going past my head.
Oh, jeez.
and then...
Right. You are in an explosion. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah. I'm right in the fire, man.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So, and then the flames are kind of coming back and they're slowly starting to meet me. And it's like, I got to breathe. So yeah, by the way, I don't recommend eating fire. Unless you're a professional, don't do this at home, kids.
Good call.
All right. So we had to have a little disclaimer there just so people don't
try this at home.
And then I got up and I shut the wellhead in, went around the backside of the burning building, closed the valve, got in the backhoe, and started to drive back to help.
Yikes.
Because in 85, we had no cell phones. We had...
Did you have a radio?
Well, we had two-way communication, but not in the backhoe.
Not in the backhoe. Okay.
So I had to bounce over this thing, and if you know...
So you had another 3 hours to drive to save your own life, basically.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I didn't like those numbers, right?
No, I don't like those numbers either.
So I brought...
other than the fact that I know you made it because you're here.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm here to tell the story.
We were laughing about it because you're alive, but yeah.
Well, it's funny. It's funny now. So I drop the bucket down a little bit, curl it up in the front, and then I take the backhoe and I stretch it right out like an outrigger, and I curl up the bucket out the back, and I put her in fourth gear, and I just nail her.
Yeah.
And then I hang on for dear life. Like that poor backhoe did not have a good day that day.
No.
So I get out to the main road. I just get out onto the main road, run into a grader operator. He sees me. I don't know if I was still smoldering or black or what, because I couldn't see, but my lip was totally fried. The only part that was exposed in my face was... because I had glasses on and everything else, sunglasses, because it was a bright day, actually.
Yeah.
And like my cheeks were singed and my lip was burnt, mostly because I was, eating fire.
Right.
Like if you eat a glass of water, they're kind of wet, right?
Yeah. You're going to get a little on you.
Yeah. If you eat a glass of fire, it's not wet.
Right. It's hot.
just to make that point.
Right. I gotcha.
And then the back of my hand was burnt. And,
because you took your glove off. Right.
Well, yeah, exactly. And after about an hour of, after the incident happened, you lose that adrenaline, that, you don't feel any pain sort of scenario.
Right.
And there was a lot of pain.
Yeah, that hurts.
So back in the, make it quick here. So into the grader, finally, back on a road. I never seen anybody turn a grader around so fast on such a skinny road in my life, but that guy did, right? So I get in, we get to the camp. He'd already phoned ahead. He had a radio. I don't know why he had one, but anyways, they get the plane fired up, and the guy that actually hired me was a pilot. So he gets in the plane, and he's looking at me, and he said, "We'll get you there as soon as we can." Well, it's still a 2.5-hour flight.
Wow. So you're looking at like 5-6 hours now from boom to hospital.
Yeah.
Yikes.
before I had my first look at anybody that knew anything about what just could they do for me.
Right. Right. Wow. Okay.
And then for the next few days, while I was healing from that, things just started to digress. I'm looking at the house number across the street. It's getting fuzzier. My thighs are on fire. I'm thirsty all the time. Back then I would have urinated 5 times by the time we've already had this amount of recording done, right? Wow. It just wasn't pretty. And then I was losing weight like crazy. I mean, I was a 180-pound diver. I was 180 pounds of me, and then there was 50, 60 pounds of lead weight on top of that, and another 50 pounds of equipment plus, you're going in the water like 340 pounds, and you're 180 of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was down to 140 pounds in 5 days.
Wow. What happened? Did you get cooked?
Diabetic ketoacidosis.
Okay. Explain.
The biggest. Right, I'll try to.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. All right. So our cells, if you just looked at a single cell in our body, it feeds on, most of us are feeding it glucose.
Right.
Right. But it can also feed on protein, or it can feed on fat.
Right. Ketosis. We've heard of that.
Well, ketosis is fat.
Right.
But when it feeds on protein, it's its own protein.
Yeah. Oh, right. So you're eating yourself there.
Bingo.
Yikes.
So you want to talk about, flesh-eating disease. This is as fast, and there's no bacteria.
So basically, your body decided, because of this explosion, for some reason, to start getting energy, making ATP from protein. That's essentially, kind of.
Well, little more in depth than that.
Okay.
What happened is, and this is where I intend to write a book about this, because I think there's a real huge correlation to developing the perfect storm in your body and then having a trigger.
Okay.
To have it completely explode inside.
Okay.
that was what the explosion was to me. Somebody else, it might be stress of a new marriage, stress of a new job, maybe another accident, maybe a virus, maybe a bacterial infection, something that overwhelms the body, something
traumatic. Yeah,
exactly. That jerks that sympathetic nerve, that fight or flight so hard that you produce so much cortisol and so much adrenaline.
It just flips a switch that doesn't unflip.
It overwhelms the body.
Right.
But you have to have an incubation. You have to have something incubating. You have to be on typically a lousy diet.
Okay.
A
lot of people are on a lousy diet.
Well, and it's not, and we don't really think it's by choice, because it's kind of like, we're going to work, the wife's at work, the dog's at work, the parakeet's at work. Everybody's working just to make the bills.
Right.
Who's going to cook?
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's what we set up 40 years ago. We got McDonald's and all these other things that are, I'm sorry, guys, but you're killing us. Okay.
Right. They are fast and cheap. So thanks for that. But they're killing us. Right. For sure.
Right.
Yes.
So when we get into that state, that sort of metabolic perfect storm, and then you have something traumatic, that can kick in this type 1 diabetes.
Wow. Holy cow.
Now, I've been, to wrap this into the whole picture, all right, that explosion, I'll do real quick, that explosion of the D-high, 15 years later, I developed a chemical process on D-highs so that they would never do that again.
Oh, nice. Well, that's good. It took you 15 years? Wait, why so long? I'm just teasing.
Well, I lost a wife, got a wife, had a kid.
Life got in the way, right? Okay.
Had a few different jobs, and then ended up back in the oil patch, and this just presented itself to me, and I went,
here's my chance to make this right.
Well, lemons to lemonade, right?
Exactly. That's
lemons to lemonade. So when I was born, by the way, I was born quite young. And,
most of us are. One would hope. Yeah. Unless, of course, you're an old soul, as they say, right?
Well, I think I am that too, right? 10 pounds, 4 ounces, 24 inches long. My mom had to have a C-section to get me out.
Yikes. Wow. Okay, you were young, but you were big.
Well, I was kind of almost ready to walk, right?
Right. Wow.
The fun part of that story was, in way back in those days, you had to be like 2 weeks in the hospital for the mother, right?
Wow.
After a C-section. So she'd get up to come feed me, and she could never find me because the nurses were out walking around with me. So apparently I was a bit of a party baby.
I like
it. And then because I didn't fit in the little bassinets, they had to put me in a much larger crib. And apparently about day 4, there was 2 5-pound twin girls born. So they had one on each side of me taking pictures. So you can draw a conclusion to whatever you want to that. But I've told that story with a lady on each side of me, and I kind of bring my arms up and I go and kind of bring them in, and I look back and forth and I say, so I'm really only comfortable like right now.
This is how I need to be.
It's imprinting. It's not my fault.
That's right. I love it. Okay. So, all right. So now you developed this type 1 diabetes, and you didn't go immediately into becoming a health coach, right? So you had to deal with this with your doctor and kind of like just start, trying to stay alive, right? So what was it like in the beginning, and how did you end up? Well, let's start with that, because that's a pretty big question, and I think it's going to take a while. So,
all right.
What was living, with type 1 diabetes when you hadn't had it before to start with?
Well, for 27 years, I had to kind of structure my life around this life sentence. All right.
Okay. Right.
So 2021 will be 100 years since the discovery of insulin by Banting and Best in Canada. Two Canadian scientists. That is now today, back then it was a death sentence. Once we had insulin, it became a life sentence.
Lovely. Okay. So first it would kill you, then it would keep you in prison. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, you're a prisoner of your own body based on how well you can balance your blood sugars and what food is available at the time that it's happening.
I've had friends that were in this prison, and they were always constantly on that dancing that knife edge. And
well, I think the biggest thing to fight is the upstairs stuff, because I'm going to give everybody out there that whether they're type 1 or type 2 right now a tip. This is a big tip. If your blood sugars are high, it will give you a false hunger.
Right.
The reason being is you don't have enough insulin floating in your body to move all that blood sugar in your bloodstream into the cells for the cells to get fed. So don't eat. Just take some insulin, let it come down between 4 and 8 or 70 and 150, and you won't be hungry anymore.
Right. It's like your body lying to you.
Well, your body isn't lying.
No, that's true. It's giving
what your body
report.
is doing is because the insulin allows the glucose to get into the cell for the mitochondria to burn it and have its own little party.
Right.
And when it can't have a party,
it's gonna think, hey, I need more. Right.
Right. And if you don't give it and you let that go up too high, at some point you switch into that it's going to burn the own protein right beside you, and you go into DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis.
Right. Yikes. Okay.
Yeah. So 27 years of being 2 weeks away from being dead at any one point in time.
Lovely. And you're taking the shots every day, right? It's that type.
Oh, I was on every different program you could come out with. I could never afford the pump. They're like $7,000 or $8,000, and they never, had any kind. We have healthcare, we got a doctor, but we have no support in anything else. Trust me.
Right.
So you're paying for your own drugs. Some people have a drug plan, whatever, businesses, companies, but I've always been self-employed for the most part. So
you're paying out of your pocket for everything.
Well, my boss is kind of cheap, right?
You. Okay.
We've had a few board meetings, but it never got anywhere, right?
Right. We're gonna die if we don't get this. Shut up.
Well, by the time you pay the monthly amount for the insurance, it's what you're going to pay for your supplies. So what's the difference, right?
Okay. All right.
It's one of those games, right?
I feel you.
Yeah. So 27 years. Matter of fact, when I started my filtration business, this whole process of keeping these dehydrates running properly, I developed and built a whole entirely new truck. All right. But, and it was big enough for me to put all kinds of equipment in there, all upgraded. And, I had a bed in there so that I could sleep because I never felt good half the time.
Okay.
So I could just hide inside this. It looked like a big bread truck, right? I would hide inside of here, but I also had an electric toilet in there in case I needed it, because after 27 years of type 1 diabetes, I developed 3 or 4 other autoimmune conditions.
Wow. Okay. Right. Crohn's disease, things like that.
Crohn's, colitis.
Okay.
I had diabetic gastroparesis.
Yikes! Oof. I don't even.
So that's where the peristaltic movement in your intestines doesn't really work anymore. So this presents a problem because you have a low blood sugar, you need to eat, but the food ain't moving. Or you eat and you take your insulin, but the food ain't moving.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with things like short-acting insulin, they draw a parabolic curve, right? And when you eat high glycemic foods, they also draw pretty much a parabolic curve. The challenge is getting those two curves to coincide. It's kind of like trying to shoot a missile out of the air, and they've been working on that for how many years?
They still haven't gotten that one down now.
Yeah. Right?
Right.
So here I am one day. I'm actually, the oil patch had been kind of in a recession. Things weren't all that great. It was a long time between jobs. I'm kind of tight on money. I had to go to a great job that was going to make me lots of money because it was going to be 6, 7, 8, 10 days. But I'm going to be on site all the time with this unit. Like I would fire this unit up. It would run a generator. It would run the pumps. It was controlled by what they call PLC, so programmable logic control. So It completely ran itself. It was a big hit in the oil patch because it was the safest unit around, right?
Okay.
And I was the only guy that ever did it. That was the other factor.
That's a good gig then for you.
So here we are running away, and I've got to figure out what am I going to eat for 10 days because I don't even know if I can get away from this site to go get food, right?
Okay, wow. So you got to pack it all in.
So I packed 2 coolers of energy-dense foods, nuts, seeds, pulled pork, smoked salmon.
Okay.
All these kind of things that I
Sounds
could
good.
that I could cook. It was great, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot about the bread and the other things and all the high glycemic stuff because I thought, I also need to try to save some money on some insulin here. If I didn't take my short acting as often, if I didn't have to take it as often, what could I figure out? So I work all this out while I'm in the middle of nowhere, Jeff.
All right. Wow.
I have no doctor at this time because my previous doctor moved out of town and I couldn't find another one yet.
Gotcha.
I've never had an endocrinologist. And the only dietitian I had was fatter than I was.
All right. Okay.
I'm
feeling another perfect storm brewing here. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited to find out.
So step by step, I'm trying to figure out what to do. And I talk about this in my all-night solution. It's about getting your basal insulin. If you break down the word basal, it means base.
Okay.
So you get your base amount of insulin up, and we can do that now because over 100 years, they've got some great delivery of insulin, all different forms, all different kinds, short, fast, intermediate. Now they got some long, extra long. I like the long and extra long, right?
Okay.
Because there's
you
no
don't have to take it so much.
There's no parabolic curve.
Okay. No
right?
spike.
No spike, right? So it comes up, and it pretty much draws a flat line for 24 hours.
Nice.
All right. Well, we have to take insulin, we have to eat food, we have to exercise, and we have to watch our stress. Because if we have a fight or flight occasion, we're going to dump cortisol and adrenaline, and we're going to cancel all the insulin in our body.
Oof. Wow.
So if you take that's called a quadratic formula.
Okay.
But if you vary those, so a lot of the insulin programs, or a lot of them used to be, I'm going exclusion from the pumps, but they do it in the pumps as well. They jack it up a little bit and they knock it down a little bit. They play around with it, right?
Right.
Which is fine. Your insulin in your body comes in whenever you're supposed to need it.
Yeah. So people that don't have type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes, we have a pump. It's a pancreas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It works pretty good. Yes.
It works awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So the idea here was I was on a lower amount of basal. All right. So if you visualize an isosceles triangle, the bottom of the isosceles triangle is the base amount of insulin you have in your body. The left side rising is anytime you add anything that's going to turn into sugar. So anytime you eat, that's your addition of food. The descending side is representing the expanse of time, because over time it's going to drop and fall. And also if you have any exercise.
Okay.
So if you're putting any output.
Right.
Well, with that triangle large, that means you have to add a very large amount of counteracting insulin for that rise in that triangle to make it come back down the other side.
Okay. Right.
Well, when you add large amounts of fast-acting insulin, the problem is catching that missile at the right time, because if you miss, it's going to go into the ground on the other end.
Right.
See where I'm going there?
I do. Yeah.
So it comes down very hard and very harsh. And when you go into a low blood sugar, man, there's a lot of times where people get up in the middle of the night and all you see is the fridge door on and there's the type 1 digging into the chocolate cake,
Yeah.
Because he has to. It's not that we want to, we have to. We have this survival mode because we're going to die, or feels like we're going to die.
Right. It's the
Right?
Snickers
So we need
syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just not yourself, right?
Right. And I think we can all relate. We've all had that. Yeah, sure.
And the thing is that you're correct. You can all relate because it happens to all of us.
It does.
That
yes.
mechanism is not exclusive to a type 1. The severity is.
Correct.
But it happens in everybody.
Most of us just get what we call the food coma, right? If you
blood sugar control is a universal problem.
Yes, it is. It is. It
all
affects
right?
everybody.
Because if you jack your sugars up to where it wants to go above 8, you're going to produce so much insulin.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to keep it to not going above 8 or 150 in your guys' numbers. It's going to keep it, below that 150, but it's going to pump so much insulin. It's going to be the same thing as me taking too much short-acting insulin.
Right.
2.5 hours later, you'll eat the back end out of a skunk if you could find one.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're just dying for anything.
Especially if it had like ketchup on it.
Oh, perfect. Call it roadkill. I'm in.
That's right. No, we don't need to cook it. Just give me. Yeah.
Like just anything. You got to shove it in that face, man.
Yes.
It's horrible.
Yes. We've all been there. We know that feeling. Yes.
Taking that triangle and making it smaller by raising that baseline of insulin up as high as you can.
Okay.
All right. So quick math. I was taking 24 units of long acting, and by the time I was done through the day with all these
exercise and eating and
but with what my old program with the bolus shots of insulin and trying to hit the carbohydrates, I was taking about probably 40 to 45 units of total insulin.
Yikes. Wow.
So I take that and I take that 24 and I jack it up. I keep jacking it up, and I quit taking my short acting. All right, except for just little bits to try to bring me down. And I jack up the insulin until I'm like 36, 37, 38. And right there, I hit a sweet spot. And in that sweet spot, all of a sudden, I can eat, fats, proteins, good fats and proteins. Whole foods is what I'm eating only, and nothing processed. I got away from all that stuff. You have to in your diet.
Right. Well, it's made of sugar and other junk.
Right. Sugar and preservatives. Preservatives is another name for antibiotic.
Yikes. Yes. Okay. Right. Because that's what it's supposed to do. Yeah. It
kills the bugs. It can't eat it. If the bugs can't eat it, that's an antibiotic.
Correct. Yes. That reminds me of those. Did you ever watch the movie Super Size Me?
Yes.
At the very end, it might have been in the bonus features in the DVD, but they had some McDonald's French fries, right? And he was doing an experiment on like real food versus fast food.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so he took like a regular hamburger that you made like, in your mom's kitchen with real bread and real meat, right? And he put it in like a little like Petri dish or, like a dish with a glass cover, like a cake cover, right?
That.
Yeah. And in less
just
than a couple of days, it was covered,
days,
right, covered in mold. And those French fries, they were like, they had half-life.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. You might as well put them in with a nuclear waste because they'll break down about the same time, right?
So we'll know we're all gonna evolve into like cockroaches eating Twinkies and McDonald's French fries. Because nothing will kill them.
In a world.
Anyway, sorry, I digress.
Hey, no, that's fun. That's why I like your show. I love it.
Okay.
All right, so getting back to that triangle, I jacked that thing up to about 36, 37, 38 units. Now it's like I'm surfing on my insulin, Jeff, because I know my blood sugars are going to come down. See, if you have a lower basal amount, just barely enough to kind of keep your base metabolic needs, but every time you eat, you're fighting that up and down peak.
Right, okay.
All right. Well, you're going to eat like with this long-acting insulin. It's in your brain. It's programmable. If you take 36 units in a day, that's an hour, and that's 1.5 units per hour. In 4 hours, you need to have enough sugar in your system to handle that amount of insulin coming in. So, if you're going back to a quadratic equation, you've now pinned X. Now you're going to solve for Y, Z, and whoever else.
Aha. You've created a non-variable in your equation.
Yeah, because you cannot solve a quadratic formula
without
if all of them are variables.
Right. You need one known.
You got to have one known.
Yes.
All
okay.
Right, so
I get it. I'm bad at math, and I get it.
All right. Just as long as I can get the visual. So now you've got that stable amount of insulin in there, causing your sugar to just ever so gently come down. And then when it gets down to about, 80 or 4.5, whatever numbers you're looking at, I created these bars and muffins and different foods that have a good balance of about 50% fat, good fat.
Yep.
25% protein, and the rest is a little bit of carb and fiber.
Okay, right.
But they're also tasty. They're good. They're standby things that you have made ahead of time.
Right. And they're not going to kill you.
And they're not going to kill you.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're small, right? They're calorie restricted-ish. I shouldn't.
Well, they're kind of pre-programmed.
Right.
So now you've solved for number two.
Of food, right? Okay. So now you know why.
Right. Now you've solved for number two.
Right.
You've got a pre-programmed good food. I have the shake in the morning. I have whatever I need in the afternoon, and that shake is amazing, man. If I get like an early day when I used to work in the oil patch, I'd start at 5 in the morning.
Okay.
And I'd eat this shake. It's like 16 ounces of this beautiful bliss in the morning. You're just like,
yeah. So can you tell us what's in the shake without giving away any trade secrets?
Well, go look at the website. It's in the first blog article.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I will.
That makes it easy. It's a fun blog article about playing pickleball, because it's something else I picked up, another divergence, right? But,
pickleball, okay.
Yeah. So now you've got number 2 solved, right?
Okay.
Or at least controllable.
Right.
At least controllable. And now we got 2 more to go. We got our exercise, and we got to worry about adrenaline events.
Right. Scary shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the third one we can also solve, which all I do is I walk 20, 30 minutes a day, and we just talked about pickleball. In the summertime, I play that probably 3 days a week. When I do that, when we're more active as diabetics, we get a little thing that upregulates called the GLUT4 receptor in every cell, and you have it too.
Yep.
Everybody does. And what that allows is actual glucose in the muscles to go into the cell when you're working out for long periods of time and hard and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it doesn't require insulin then to go in. So as a diabetic taking, superfluous insulin, right, that can be a problem, because you start to exercise and then all of a sudden your GLUT4s regulate up. Next thing you know, you're eating, you're taking in your glucose quite easily. The beauty of that is, though, if you do that on a regular basis, you can back off on your X. So instead of 36, you can drop to 34 or 32.
Gotcha.
See where I'm going here?
I'm still tracking with you. Yes.
Right. So that is pretty much solving for all 3. The fourth one, there really isn't a solution for that.
No.
But what there
life
is,
happens, so.
Well, what there is conditioning. I wouldn't say it's a solution, but there is conditioning. So meditation, being able to really work on that vagal response.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So, when the guy flips you off driving by, you just go, "Oh, that was a pretty finger. You should put fingernail polish on that." Let it slide like Teflon Dawn, man.
Wow. See, now that's the first time that anybody's. So what you're trying to get at is like, chill out, be a little bit more accepting, right? Relax, right. Try to keep it even keel. Right. I love it. Mellow. Very, very good. But I like it as a survival technique, which, most people don't get to, right? So good for you.
You have to, we got to be able to mellow that out. There's some breathing exercises that I teach people that help right away. But I mean, for most diabetics, it's because they're out of blood sugar control, or they're erratic in their blood sugar control, which takes their emotions left, right, and center, which is why I lost my first wife.
Oh, no. Right. Yeah.
And my second wife.
Oh, yeah. I totally get that.
Right. And it's just not fun.
Yeah.
You're just not fun to be around when you're out of whack.
No. Yeah. I mean, and I've experienced that too. Like back when I was still addicted to sugar, some of my biggest fights with my wife were all about, just me, either being in some sort of food coma or, cranky because I haven't eaten, that's, I think non-diabetics get the same sort of variance in their mood based on blood sugar, but it's, you're not going to die, but it's, it's still,
it feels like you
feel shitty. You either need a nap or,
Well, let me put it to you this way. Every time a type 1 diabetic or a type 2 on insulin, pardon me, I took a drink of water and it went down the wrong throat. Pardon me.
No good. You're good.
So every time you go into a low blood sugar, if you go low enough, you'll cross over that hangry point.
Yeah, I've been there.
To tripping the vagal response, full-blown fight or flight.
Wow. Okay, what does that look like?
Well, that's basically like if you're a type 1 diabetic, you might be down crawling trying to get to the fridge or wherever you've kept your.
You're on the edge of passing out, or you're going into seizure.
Well, yeah, it could progress from there, but you could be passing out, and it's just not going to be pretty, right? So the body is obviously going to flip into its only response, right? It's like knocking at your head. It's like, hey, hello, You're going to die here if you don't do something.
Right. It's the body getting the red alert to the captain.
Yeah. Whether your eyes pick up the tiger in the plane that's going to come running at you, or your blood sugars are dropping, right? Or you get blown out of a building, or you get a divorce, or right.
Life happens. Yes.
It does.
Something traumatically life. Yes.
And it's part of what we need to learn how to experience, but how to calm that vagal response down. Like I've got all the categories of PTSD.
You do.
I've got them all, but you got to learn to work with them. And I have a huge amount of respect for anybody that experiences PTSD. Reach out for help. Yeah. But you need to really, I use a lot of essential oils. I use a lot of breathing techniques. I'm starting to work with learning how to meditate. It kind of freaks me out because, I'm that A personality, don't want to lose control kind of guy, right?
Right. Oh, I get you. Yeah. I think one of the things that helped me the most is check out Stoicism. Have you ever heard of Stoicism as a philosophy?
No, but I will.
It's not what most people think, because you hear the word stoic, you think this like stone cold, emotionless type of, I don't know, person that just, is like a robot or something. That's not really what the philosophy is about. It's more, if I could sum it up in a word, it's just more about stop arguing with reality and accept it, accept the way life is and deal with it. Like, kill the dragon in front of you.
Exactly. And if I can bring this all home together here now that we've got this formula kind of half solved, guess what you get back? When you stabilize your blood sugar, now you can simplify your life.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because now you get to do things.
Yeah.
Some of the old programs you were eating every 2 hours. A lot of times right now, sometimes I don't eat for 6 or 7 hours.
Isn't that nice?
But my blood sugar is just rock stable.
It's just humming along.
I'm just sitting there on my surfboard riding it down.
Wow. So basically you've done away with all of your prescription medication outside of insulin. You're basically controlling your type 1 with a combination of diet, meditation tactics, and then your what do you call it? Pickleball? And other
pickleball. Have you ever?
Walking, right? Okay, so that's good.
Well, you've never heard of pickleball?
No, I've never heard of pickleball.
Look it up online. It's the fastest growing sport in North America.
Really? Pickleball.
Yeah, I never heard about it until 3 years ago. So here I am. I'm out the back of my house here down in Creston. Beautiful. I live in the mountains, just straight north of you. I'm right on the tip of the Idaho Panhandle, but just in Canada.
Okay.
Right, just free of Trump.
Yeah. Right? Congratulations.
Yeah, we were thinking about building the wall, and then we were hoping maybe somebody would throw in for a lid, maybe, Just kidding. So it's a beautiful area here in the mountains, and that's why I moved here. I love it here, right? So I'm out in my backyard, and I'm doing some work. I poured a bunch of concrete and made gardens and grow berries and do all kinds of stuff, right? All kinds of looking for whole food and herbs. I got a huge herb garden, right?
Awesome.
So, I'm standing there. Summertime, it's hot. I'm in my shorts. A couple of neighbors. There's a cul-de-sac out the back of my yard, the back end of one, right? So all of a sudden, I knew one gentleman. He kind of introduced himself earlier on for me moving to the area. And then another guy, they were talking. And I come out and said, hey, come on in for a bit, because they were curious what I was doing, right? A lot of construction and stuff going on, things going on. And they come in, we're talking a little bit. Well, the older gentleman, he kind of looks at me, and he looks down at my legs, and he looks back up at me, and he goes, how's your legs?
Odd question.
Well, that's kind of what I thought. I said, as I looked down at him, and I said, well, they're still a little white and kind of look like I'm riding a chicken, but they're fine. Why? And he said, well, have you ever played pickleball?
I got you.
And I look back at him and I go, well, I beg your pardon, sir, but we've only just met.
I think I might have gone somewhere there, Yeah, pickleball. What are you talking about?
Basically, pickleball is ping pong on a badminton court.
Ping pong.
Full size ping pong.
Okay.
So wow. you got a double size ping pong racket. like double size the area roughly.
Okay.
But it's just like a ping pong racket. And then those wiffle balls, those hollow ones with the holes in them.
Okay, sure.
You play over a low net. It's about a 3-foot net.
Okay.
And it's just the most fun you'll ever have.
Interesting. I want to check out
it's great.
pickleball.
I recommend this for anybody in our age group. It's really, really fast growing. And like, I know you're going to the Gen Xers, which are probably not quite caught up to where I'm at, but
it's all good.
Because I'm a end of the baby boomers myself. Right?
Yeah.
But there's lots of people. Like I had a guy that I could not beat, and he was 79 years old, man. That guy would just put me on run like you would not believe.
Wow. Right.
So there's a strategy to the game. So what it does for us, I think it's very important to have that eye-hand coordination, or maybe even a little bit of some adrenaline, some competition, some fun, some social activity.
Yes, for sure.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, you need that.
And you're not talking about politics and getting all depressed.
Right. Right. And you're having fun, you're being competitive, you're being social. And I've discovered this like recently, that dudes need to like tease each other. It's socially important for our brains for us to mess with each other. Which is kind of like running up against a wall in society these days. Yeah.
That's what I do on the pickleball court. You get a few guys that are starting out and they always wanted to hit it. They always want to hit it hard, right?
Yeah.
When that's not the game. You got to be a little finesse. There's a time to hit it hard, but not all the time.
Right.
And when they'd hit it really hard, because you're just waiting for it to come at you. You're just watching it. And they just and they hit it, and it hits the net. And then you look across and you go, oh, buddy. If I could give you a tip, I only think you got about 80% of that. I think you laid off it a little.
Take it easy.
So, well, no. I think I would keep telling them I don't think you hit it hard enough, and they keep trying to hit it even harder. Right?
I love it.
So it's all good. It's all fun. And, the biggest thing is for the last 7 years since I figured this out, I kind of have hope that I know where I'm going. I actually had a dream that I'd end up being the oldest type 1 diabetic ever.
That's awesome.
I don't know whether that is or not.
Well, it could be.
You get a little lonely when you get out there, right?
Right. We're both on the cusp of making it to immortality. You realize that, right? It might be too late for you. It might be too late for me, but you never know. We could both make it. We don't know.
Well, I'm kind of thinking these young kids growing up now, I don't think they would have made my first 50 years.
You're probably right. I may not have survived the explosion either. I probably would have died in a heap going.
Well, see, now I feel like I've got the ability. I can come in screeching and on the brakes and open up the car door and roll right into the pre-dug grave for me, because that's how I'm going to want to go out.
That's awesome. That's a good picture. So you are at, let me make sure I get it right, type1simplified.com. You are correct. Lyle Haugen. Haugen. You even wrote down Haugen. Haugen. Thank you very much. This has been a blast. How can people best get in touch with Lyle Haugen?
You can reach me on the website. If you want to just have a look at the free report first and get a feel for that.
I want to check that out because I want to sleep all night.
Book a 30-minute free appointment with me. You can get right in touch. If you want to get some advice on that, reach me through that direction. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Are you selling those bars anywhere?
Everybody asks me that, and the challenge with that is this: as soon as you put commercialism on it, you have to change ingredients.
I understand. It's a challenge. It is. I have a buddy that's trying to make a bar maker, and he's been at it for a long time.
Well, I've actually got quite a few clients that, like I've gotten a client who led me to a client and so on and so forth, right?
Right. It's hard to scale.
Yeah, they end up, like the first one was kind of ahead of the other one, so started making the bars. So now the other two are buying them off that one. So they got their own little mini thing going on there, which is good. Right. But I believe they have to be made by your own hands. You have to touch your food. That's giving your body the sense of what's coming. That's giving your,
Yeah. No, I get
it. Prep time. You can't just sit down and shovel something down your throat. It's just not going to work right.
Okay. I like that attitude. You kind of have, you're getting back to that respect what you eat, honor what you eat, honor your food.
Honor your food, pay attention to it, be thankful for everything.
Right.
You know,
right.
Be thankful for, it's hard when you're chasing that rat race and it's all about the money and getting the creditors off your ass. I know what that's all about. They're horrible, right?
Right.
And when you get into that frame of mind, you very easily, start massaging that vagal nerve to the point where you're in sympathetic mode, and that's just not a good place to be.
No, yeah, you're right.
You're in fight or flight, and that's a scary place.
Yeah, and that's road rage.
That's road rage. That's exactly right.
That's right.
That's people going off with guns everywhere,
Amen.
So we don't want any of that.
All right. Well, everybody out there, check out type1simplified.com. Connect with Lyle. He's a hoot. And thank you, Lyle. This has been a blast.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I love your show.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye now.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.